Hello and welcome to Habits of Optimal Health. I'm Katherine Eyring, your health and empowerment coach. I will be introducing Joe Truscello, executive chef and director of a nationwide recovery clinic. He'll be sharing his own story of cleaning up his diet, staying away from sugars, white flour, processed foods, which led him to painlessly lose 60 pounds and keep it off. He's going to give us his professional view of healthy foods. Welcome, Joe. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks
Good
for
to see
being
you.
here. For those of you who might think Joe looks familiar, he was the previous owner of Sapori Italian Restaurant in Avon Lake, Ohio. And it was a delightful restaurant. But in 2019, you went to Florida, right?
Right, I moved back.
So tell us a little bit about your journey from there.
Okay. When I left Ohio, I probably was not in the best of health. I had been there 10 or 11 years and just didn't take care of myself. I think I probably put on 30 or 40 pounds in the 10 or 11 years I was there. And I blossomed up to, before I actually left, about 65 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I just wasn't feeling well. I came back home. I started having inflammation, um, some breathing issues, uh, fatigue, just your basic overweight things that come with being 60 and over. And I said I got to do something about this. So I just started investigating, and many of the things that Catherine talks about were things that I started thinking about as well. And then we crossed paths. We've been friends forever, and we crossed paths on Facebook. And I said, we got to get together on this because everything that you're speaking about on a daily basis is something that I went through. So,
And I
um,
just want to say, Joe, the way you've done things is so rare. For you to have done your own research, had no support, we're not in a group or anything, and you did this on your own, that is just really probably the hardest way to do it, and you did. It's
yeah, thanks.
awesome.
What I did was I'm one of these guys that likes to test things. So I won't just read it and then do it. I'll do it, and as soon as I see results, I'll stop doing it to make sure that what happened wasn't a fluke. And I do that with everything. I do that with my diet. I do that with supplements. I do it with foods that I eat. And I've pretty much got it down to a science now over the last 2 years on what works for me, what works for my system, um, what makes me flabby in the waist, what makes my face swell up. And what I did was I basically got rid of white flour, sugar, fried foods, and anything that had high fructose corn syrup, which of course is a sugar, but I bring that up as kind of a fourth or a 3A item because to start mending the damage I had done to my body, I needed to go through my house and just get rid of anything that had that in it. And I'm telling you, I filled up a garbage can. I went through my pantry, I went through the refrigerator, anything, ketchup, barbecue sauce, I don't care what it was. If it was something that I needed for baking or whatever, if it had that in it, it had to go. And I was really hell bent on that. I wasn't gonna compromise on the high fructose corn syrup. So when I got rid of that, I had to replace a few items with natural items, and I was okay with it. I noticed right away when I got rid of the high fructose corn syrup that I had much less inflammation in my ankles. I mean, it was almost immediately. I hadn't even really started with the white flour for a long period. The minute I threw the white flour into the equation, um, your stomach just, you know, I'm doing a little bit of exercise during this time, but not a lot. I did a lot more exercise and I exercise now after I've lost the weight. But in the beginning, actually, the first 30 or 40 pounds, I really didn't do anything. The four things I told you about, and the weight came off in about 8 or 9 months, all 60 pounds. And I didn't change my food consumption. I still ate healthy plates. I still ate 3 or 4 times a day. I just didn't eat white flour, fried foods, processed sugar. Anything I picked up with an ingredient label on it, if it had added sugar, I really just tried to put it down. If it's something I needed in the industry for baking or for, and it had 2 or 3% added sugar, as long as it was natural cane sugar, then I might use it in the recipe. But I tried to alternate other things. But sugar's sugar. So if you're gonna try to stay away from it, you got to try to stay away from it.
So I
There's
just want to say, when you mentioned throwing all that stuff away, I think this is something that people really feel challenged by. They feel like this is money. I paid all this money. And so they feel like if I throw that out, that's just such a big waste. Well, I'm going to eat it first. But
Yes.
that's just faulty thinking, really. Like, I'm just going to eat this poison so that I can be healthier afterwards. Like, you just have to throw it out. Once you have that awareness, you have to acknowledge it's it belongs in the garbage.
If you're conscious to these things, these poisons, these toxins, because really what they are, your body's not set up to consume them. Yeah, you can consume them, but nothing good will come from it. If you're a young person in your teens or 20s and your metabolism is nuts, you can get away with it for a little while, but not once you've gotten a little older, you just can't do it. I don't care who you are, you can't.
And even that, I think we have 1 out of 4 kids that are diabetic or pre-diabetic right now.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
might look okay. That doesn't mean they're okay.
When you start looking at the ingredients labels and you really see how far they process some of the food, that food has no nutritional value. You might as well not eat. You'd be better off not eating. Yes, it fulfills some sort of requirement. You feel satisfied because you consumed it. But the damage you're doing, you'd be better off to not eat it. And that's
That's
hard
right.
to, I know it's hard to kind of grasp, but that goes back to the corn syrup thing. You just got to get rid of it. And I didn't like throwing that stuff away because, like you said, it was money, but I did it, and I was happier that I did it. And now I never buy that stuff. It's been a couple of years, and I look at everything on that. If it's got it, no matter how bad I need it, I just don't buy it, regardless. Going down my ingredient list, I'll tell you guys what I do. Since I don't use white flour anymore, I do some ancient grains that are all sprouted. So it would be kamut and things like that. And I take all of those flours, and I actually, if I'm making a gravy, I make a slurry, I make it with that flour. I make the roux with those ancient grain sprouted flours. Any bread that I bake with those flours. The sugar that I use for fermentation with my yeast and things of that nature, I either use um, organic beet or coconut sugar. I'll use organic cane. I really like organic date syrup the best. That seems to really, for making bread and things like that, with especially with the ancient grains, it's just a natural. And it's weird because all those grains are from the old world, and beet and date sugar is also from the old world, and it's amazing how well they actually marry up together in recipes and do what they're supposed to do. Again, I try to keep the sugar down, but some things just have to have it when you're cooking. It's a chemical equation when you're cooking. I mean, that's what cooking is. It's chemistry. So you do have to have sugar in some of it. But I've learned to like just reduce recipes when I bake here even the clients. And I don't care if I'm making a cupcake or whatever from the ingredients we just spoke of. I'll jack the sugar way down, and nobody really says anything. It's like you're thinking they're going to say, well, this is bland, but no, it's really not. If you use wholesome ingredients and you're savvy to what you're doing, you can get around it. Everything has really too much sugar. The sugar that's in the recipes today is not because it needs it. It's because we've raised our demand to want it to that level. So these recipes are putting that amount in there, but you'd be surprised how much less you could actually enjoy if you started making the recipes that way.
When you feel like you have inflammation, what are your symptoms? What is it that you notice?
Okay. For me, Um, the ankles is the first tell. You pull down your socks and you can see that your socks put a little indentation on your ankles. That never happened to me when I was a kid. It's happened now at 64 years of age. Still happens a little bit now, but not like before I lost the 60 pounds. The reason it happens now, my doctor said, is because you're on your feet so many hours per day. He goes, if you had a desk job, you'd have no inflammation. He goes, but you're standing on your legs all day, so you're not going to have the same circulation as someone that's 25 years old. But I mean, my ankles were huge before I lost the weight. And now when I wake up in the morning, they're the size of what like I was in high school, skinny little ankles. And at the end of the day, they're just um, a little bit swollen. I noticed that a couple of my toes got swollen, um, really bad. Almost felt like I had ingrown toenails, and the toenails were perfect. I had no problem with my toes or anything, but the feeling was unbearable. It actually led to pre-diabetes for me, gout, all of these things I was developing when I first left Ohio. And I got rid of all of them, just changing the diet. And I mean all of them. I've got zero problems now. If anybody out there is suffering with any kind of arthritic symptoms, I can tell you that if you get rid of fried foods, it's going to the improvement is going to shock you. You're going to go to your doctor and you probably stop taking a lot of the meds that you're taking for arthritis. Arthritis is rampant in my family. My mom was crippled with arthritis, and I had it all through my fingers and ankles and knees from sports and standing and cooking and everything. But it was driven by fried foods, and I could prove it to myself. Fried foods are bad for arthritis, not to
It's
mention everything else that they're bad for.
And so it is likely to be the vegetable or seed oils
Yeah.
that are the problem that are creating the inflammation there. And that kind of drives home the point that so many people are walking around not feeling well, not realizing that they don't have to. They can just totally change that just by selecting different foods. Like you just don't know how good you can feel until you clean up your food. And then it's
Right.
just amazing.
Um, you know, the, the molecular chemistry of oils changes at temperatures. Okay. They talk about flash points and smoke points for oils, but the toxicity range on oils changes drastically with temperature when you heat it. That's why, you hear people talking about raw food diet and crude food diet and eating raw. If you could eat raw, I mean, nobody can, it's tough to do and enjoy life, but it is much healthier. But if you can avoid taking oils to super high temperatures and learn to finish with an oil, like the great chefs, they will not fry a lot of stuff sauteed in oil. They will use lard or butter, but they'll finish with oil for flavor. In other words, when the flame's off in the pan, they'll hit it with a little EVO at the end for the flavor, but they won't cook with it as much as you think they do. They'll cook with butter or lard, which is healthier for you than canola or soybean oil or anything else that you take up to that flash range. They become totally toxic for your body. They're terrible for you in the raw state, and they're even worse when you heat them. The only seed oil I told Catherine, there's only one that I still use, and you have to because there's nothing else. Is I every once in a while I use a little sesame seed oil because you need it in stir fry because sesame seed is sesame seed. But I have learned to kind of use it in the finish to get the flavor as opposed to really using it through the wok through the whole thing because I know it's the toxicity is going to change when it gets hot.
Well, I love everything you have to say, and I'm going to say thank you very much. We'll stop right there.